was watching AEW Dynasty. It was a pretty damn good show, as it always is with AEW on pay-per-view. Lately, the main event with Jon Moxley has been the lame event, and then all of a sudden, my phone starts blowing up. Got a lot of people hitting me up saying, "What the hell, Fred? Did you see what happened?" And I did see what happened at the end, but I didn't want to believe it because we had a pretty damn good show. Granted, one that went too damn long at the Liqueur Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, AEW Dynasty 2025 pay-per-view. And this show went very long. Like, think WrestleMania before 2 nights long. And we finally seem to be getting Swerve Strickland regaining the AEW World title. The match with Jon Moxley went way too long. There were some interesting spots, some very physical spots. But I thought, you know what? Finally, the national nightmare's over, right? Jon Moxley's god-awful world title run is finally going to be over. They're righting the ship. Tony Khan is bragging to the media about how he's gotten great creative feedback lately, because he's the booker and this and that, and he takes full responsibility of what you see on TV. Well, here's what happened, folks. We watched a Swerve Strickland versus Jon Moxley match that was definitely a few rungs below your usual Swerve Strickland match. And it was not Swerve's fault. It was long as hell. It was like after 12:30. Keep in mind, most of us in the States here, staying up, got to go back to work tomorrow or school or whatever. And obviously, international fans as well got their own commitments. But either way, long ass pay per view, especially for the fans in the crowd. Keep in mind, right? It's East Coast. And what happens? Swerve, hits the stomp, and then he's slowly crawling to the cover. And I'll recap the rest of the match, but I'll just tell you the ending. So he's slowly crawling and crawling and crawling and crawling. And then finally, the lights turn out. They go off because, Tony's obsessed with ECW. And, a bunch of younger fans, I'm pretty sure, haven't seen ECW. And the Young Bucks appear holding Swerve Strickland's hand. Like, one buck has his one wrist, another buck has another wrist, and they hit this guy with the BTE trigger. Jon Moxley pins Swerve Strickland 1, 2, 3. Jon Moxley is still your AEW World Champion. Yeah. Jon Moxley, I'm just responding to fan feedback here, is your AEW World Champion still. Oh my goodness. This is just... Anyway, if you're new here, my name is Fred Richani. This is TSC News, TSC Wrestling, the Sports Courier. I was expecting to recap Swerve Strickland winning the world title. He did not win the world title. I do not understand for the life of me how Tony Khan can book some great matches in the women's division lately. He can book a really interesting mid-card, even though, quite frankly, I don't think Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega and Okada should be flirting with anything other than the world heavyweight title at this point. But he can book some interesting things there. He can book a relatively interesting tag team division. Well, by default, because the Hurt Dynasty is amazing, or Hurt Syndicate's amazing, excuse me. But when it comes to the world title scene, I just don't get it. You put the title on Jon Moxley, who brutalized Bryan Danielson. You, quote-unquote, retire Bryan Danielson. A few weeks later, he's just doing media for All in Texas like he's fine. Jon Moxley decides to keep the world title belt, that beautiful belt, one of the most beautiful belts in all of wrestling, in a briefcase this whole time since September. He then proceeds to continue to have ugly wrestling gear, at times dressed like a jacked Peter Griffin. He complains about, changing, the narrative or what. I don't even know what the terminology is, but originally he came back wanting to change things in AEW. This is his AEW. There were rumors that maybe Shane McMahon would be involved, and at the time I was not a fan of this because, I'm sorry, Shane McMahon is a McMahon, and they're all terrible people. And so, and plus all the lawsuit stuff, I didn't think it was a good idea for AEW to get involved with that. I know Shane is just the son but he did work at that company, WWE, for decades, right? I mean, I'm sure he was privy to some things at the very least. Anyway, looking back now, I wish it turned out to be the case that Shane McMahon was the benefactor behind Jon Moxley and crew. That would have made a lot more sense than just these boring, nonsensical promos with Jon Moxley just rambling on and on. Great delivery, but great D material. And then having some of the worst matches of his career. Now, for before y'all get on me, for anybody who's followed me for a long time, you know that back when he was Dean Ambrose and in general, Jon Moxley, I've always been a fan. And now, 11 years later, 12 years later, when I was like, man, this guy could be the next Austin or something, he makes me look like a complete idiot. He should be the ace of AEW. And when I mean the ace, I mean like Hiroshi Tanahashi. I mean like John Cena. I mean like, okay, if you want him as a heel, like a Randy Orton type, right? He should be like the Randy Orton. Or at worst, like Triple H. You know, maybe not the Reign of Terror Triple H, but you know, the Triple H that Batista had to go through and John Cena had to go through and all that. But instead, I don't know what he is. Why are you hiding the world title? What is the whole point of this? At least if he brought in like an outsider again, like a Shane McMahon or somebody, I don't know who else he'd bring in. Whatever. If had they brought in MVP to be like their benefactor or something instead of the Hurt Syndicate. Like, all right, at least you have like an outside force, an outside figure, something. Maybe you had somebody be like an authority figure representing the network, which I know is a terrible storyline we saw with like ECW and then later TNA, right? I'm not saying we should rehash that. But all those things would have made more sense than Jon Moxley just being with the old Blackpool Combat Club crew, plus Marina Shafir, and just wrestling bad matches, wrestling these self-indulgent matches. And look, he's been inconsistent the last few years. Let's keep it real, right? When he doesn't have the hardcore weapons, all that other stuff, his matches can be hit or miss. But when he's on, he is one of the best performers in the industry of the last decade plus, and one of, you know, obviously the biggest stars of the last 15 years, and somebody who changed the business along with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins as part of the Shield. But he has not been good this last year. I don't know if he's just injured. I don't know if he doesn't care anymore. I don't know if he thinks his crap doesn't stink. I mean, clearly he doesn't. But I thought Tony Khan would be better in this. I really do. I really thought, like, hey, you know what? I'm getting all this positive momentum. I'm seeing all this fan feedback of people saying they love all these pay-per-views. They love all the shows except for the Death Rider stuff. Hey, why not move on from the Death Rider stuff? That doesn't mean you don't have to push Jon Moxley if you really want to push him. Just give him something else to do. Give him something else to do. Something. Anything other than holding or hiding the world title. And what happened? We had a long, droning match that was pretty good in some spots. It had some decent heat for a match that was after midnight. A lot of interference. We had the Ops come in and interfere and brawl with the BCC or whatever the hell they're called, the Death Riders now. You had the most intriguing aspect of the match where Hangman Adam Page came in, was going to do the buckshot lariat, and then he teased hitting the lariat on Moxley instead. Because if you remember, in the feud with Swerve, he said he wants to prevent Swerve from ever winning the world title. Right there, that's a blood feud. But you also may remember this past week, Swerve essentially told Hangman in an argument backstage, you know what? I deserved it. I deserved my house being burnt down, considering I broke into your house and did horrible things too. So I guess all is fair in love and arson, right? So then, yeah, as I mentioned, the Swerve hit the house call. Swerve, hit the stomp. Bucks came out when the lights came back on and took him out with the V trigger or the BT, whatever they call it. And Mox got the pin. Young Bucks, another team, another group of individuals that are washed. They could probably still put on a good match or two, I'm sure. But creatively, they have been uninteresting for at least the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. And whether I'm a big fan of them or not, the reality is they have been an important part of the company. Obviously, they helped found the company. But I do not understand this. Just put them in the tag team division and let them have some exciting matches. Why not? Just do that. What is this? Nobody wants to see Mox team with the Bucks. I just don't understand this creative direction at all. And it's sad because the rest of this pay-per-view is actually pretty damn good. So let's go through it real quick, because But here's the thing, before we go through the rest of this pay-per-view, let me just say one thing, and this is something that Dave Meltzer's brought up over the years and used to bring up when he covered WCW back in the day. And it's funny, people say he's biased, this and that. Like, he was been pretty critical. Anyway, he used to say WCW would put on these really good shows, right? Like the undercard would have like Dean Malenko and He Who Must Not Be Named, and Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, Chris Jericho, the cruiserweights. You see some pretty kick-ass stuff in the undercard, maybe even in the semi-main event. And then in the main event, you'd get like Hulk Hogan taking a dump with like, I don't know, throw out a name, like freaking Kevin Nash or something, right? Or some terrible finish. You know, I don't Hulk Hogan versus the Booty Man. I don't whatever. A lot of Hulk Hogan matches I just etched out of my memory because they were terrible back in the day in WCW. But you get the point, right? There'd be a good WCW pay-per-view, nice undercard, solid mid-card, and then you get to the main event, and it's like two geriatric dudes just beating the hell out of each other in like slow motion, crap finish, maybe even a DQ, and you go home with a bad taste in your mouth. Or if you want to use a more recent example for some of you younger fans, God rest his soul, but The Fiend Bray Wyatt, poor guy, got put in a bad position with Seth Rollins at Hell in a Cell 2019. I think it was 2019, and The Fiend got hit with a sledgehammer, and the referee disqualified Seth Rollins, even though it was a Hell in a Cell match. The same Hell in a Cell match that saw Mick Foley fall off the cage and through the cage, and Undertaker powerbomb Edge through the ring. Yeah, that one. And yeah, my phone is still blown up now. Let me turn off the notifications there. My bad, but yeah. So anyway, this was like that. Pretty good show. You know, a few standout matches for sure. But at the end of the night, those fans that went there paid their hard-earned money and stayed up late when they have to go back to school, back to work, back to whatever they're doing. They're not going to remember like, oh man, the Ospreay match was great. I mean, they might. I'm sure they will over the coming days. But what's their initial reaction going to be as they're leaving the arena, as people turn off the pay-per-view on TV? Man, that main event sucked. And that is the worst thing you could do as a promoter. Anyway, well, one of the worst things. Anyway, we had the pre-show. I didn't get a chance to catch it, but here are the results from my buddy Gerard of Through the Table on Instagram. You can follow him. He's also on iStrongStyle. Nick Wayne, Action Andretti, and Leo Rush beat AR Fox in Top Flight. I did see clips of AR Fox cooking in the ring. They got to do something with that guy. He's an indie legend. He's been there long enough. Give him something to do, at least in ROH. Please, give him some credibility. I'm begging y'all to give AR Fox and Top Flight some credibility, please. Please. I really like that tandem with Dante Martin, Darius Martin, and Layla Gray. So do something with them. We had Max Caster do his open challenge, and originally I wasn't thrilled because it's Max Caster, and that guy's an edgelord creep, and I don't like him. But a buddy of the show, Anthony Bowens, made his big return, came out to Jane's Addiction, and won pretty handily. Looked great. Gear was great. Super happy for the guy. One of the more hardworking people on the roster. Somebody that's always been called a 5-tool player. And my goodness gracious, I don't know why the hell it's taken so damn long for AEW or any company to do something with him from a singles capacity, because he is fan-freaking-tastic. He's super marketable. He's marketed himself well with this YouTube channel. He's done acting. He's been a successful commercial actor. Again, maybe I'm a little biased because he's from Jersey. I've interviewed him before. But I'm telling you, man, he's a stud. He's had the goods for a very long time. And yeah, man, I'm happy that he is back. So that was cool. Main show, Will Ospreay defeated Kevin Knight to advance in the men's Owen Hart Cup Tournament. Really good match. Kevin Knight definitely held his own. Much respect to him. The only thing is, and this is kind of the case too with the triple threat later in the show, even though they didn't get Speedball didn't get pinned. It's like you bring in these new guys and then they lose within a few weeks. I know there's no shame in losing Will Ospreay. I'm not saying he should have beaten Will Ospreay. I'm just saying minor nitpick I've seen lately. Just you guys come in, they lose within a few weeks rather than giving him some time. But hey, no shame. He held his own, and Will Ospreay endorsed him afterward. So thumbs up. Kevin Knight definitely proved himself here. The Hurt Syndicate beat the Learning Tree via pinfall. They had a little help from a guy named MJF. I'm not really feeling the MJF joining the Hurt Syndicate storyline. Then again, I haven't really felt anything MJF's been doing creatively for the last 2 years anyway. Obviously very talented. He obviously had that great series of matches with Will Ospreay last year, but I don't know. It's something to do. At least the tag belts are on a credible team. I do love Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, some of my all-time favorite wrestlers. I love MVP. I love the Hurt Business. So, hey, it's fine. As long as it keeps the Hurt Business in the spotlight, I'm good. Mercedes Moné beat Julia Hart to advance in the Owen Hart Cup for the women. And yeah, this was really good. Mercedes got the cradle pin. She just narrowly survived Julia, the gothic princess, or whatever you want to call her, of the House of, what do they call it? The House of Black or the Hell Dogs? I don't know what they're called. Whatever, the former House of Black. But she held her own here. She did pretty well. This was a big test for Julia Hart. I know some people were criticizing her because ever since she's been back, she's been all right, but not spectacular. But she was really good here. And look, it's impossible, well, almost impossible for Mercedes to have a bad match. It really is, unless you're Britt Baker. Unless you're Britt Baker, it's almost impossible. And maybe Camille, if Camille was still around. It's impossible to have a bad match with Mercedes Moné. So I'm glad that she's still winning. I'm sure they'll eventually have her against Athena. Even though I feel like it's early to do that match, but you could set her up for all the titles down the road at All In, or who knows? Maybe they have bigger plans, which include Tony Storm taking on Mercedes for all the belts. I can see that too at All In. They got to sell tickets, so I get it. We had the Death Riders beat Rated FTR, and I thought with the Death Riders winning this match, it meant that Moxley would lose the main event. Did not happen. And after the match, FTR turned heel. Pile drove Edge, Cope, Adam Copeland, whatever you want to call him. Hit him with a chair, concerto, and that was that. Kind of weird that the legend Adam Copeland has no friends, but maybe the locker room's also tired of his quality of matches lately and decided, you know what, let's just let him fend for himself. So there's that. FTR heels, and I guess it's going to set up Christian Cage teaming up with Edge for the first time, and Lord knows how. I don't know when's the last time Edge and Christian actually teamed up like on TV. It's got to be like at least 20 years. It's been a long time. I know they were together on screen in 2011, but I don't recall them ever actually teaming. Yeah, it's got to be like 20 years. Crazy. Unfortunately, they can't use the Edge and Christian name, but hey, Cope and Christian's close enough, I guess. We had the Death. Well, I did that one. Timeless Tony Storm beat Megan Bayne. Really good match. Best showing Megan Bayne's had up to this point. She's definitely got the goods. Very surprising. She won with a small package. You can make the strong argument that Megan Bayne should have won. I think the longer the match went, the more I thought Tony Storm was going to win. It's tough, right? On one hand, I think if it wasn't a few months before All In, which is their big stadium show, I'd say have Megan come in, squash the hell out of Tony Storm. But instead, they had Megan Bayne look good for like 89% of the match, and Tony Storm narrowly escaped. We also had Luther pick up Penelope Ford at ringside and take her to the back. It looked like he was almost going to Samoan drop her off the freaking stage at one point. He had the crazy face like he used to have when he was an active wrestler, but he took her to the back and leveled the playing field, and Tony Storm got the win. Awesome match, though. And they did protect Megan Bayne, so it's not that bad. Her momentum's not killed. As long as they just obviously keep her on TV, keep giving her squash matches. But I could see Tony Storm versus Mercedes. That's the match to make. Look, if you want to sell the most tickets, you got to put on the biggest matches. And yeah, I could definitely see that All In. I don't know where they're going with Moxley, but let's get to the last couple matches and we'll talk about that some more. Kyle Fletcher beat Mark Briscoe to advance in the Owen Hart Cup. Really good match. Kyle Fletcher got to be one of the most improved pro wrestlers of the last few years. I know he's always, well, not always, but in recent years been good in the ring. I mean, I didn't watch him when he was like really, really young. You know what I mean? But from what I've seen over the years, he's always been really good in the ring. But yeah, he's really put it together. A lot of respect for his work. Mark Briscoe's great. But I don't know. I feel like they've also kind of missed the boat on Mark Briscoe. This is a guy that's like an everyman type of guy. Fans love him. He gets over in any situation he's in. I really wish he was put in a position to actually win a title or two. Yes, I know he held the ROH title, but let's keep it real. The ROH as a brand is practically, I would say non-existent, but it's not a real brand. If we're really being honest, I know there's some people that are doing well in ROH. Again, Athena's amazing, but yeah, I don't know. He needs like the TNT title or something at some point, or international, whatever. One of the belts, Belton at some point. Bandito beat Chris. This is a match, by the way, that did not need to go this long. It did not need to go this long. It was a mask versus title match. Bandito, the former ROH World Champion, became a two-time ROH World Champion, pinning Chris Jericho. They had a weird, I guess, like sort of the dusty finish. Jericho used the bat named Floyd when the referee was distracted to pin Bandito, and he did it in a way where he crawled and crawled, and he finally pinned him, and it killed the crowd. But then, referee Aubrey Edwards, Bandito's family at ringside, were like, hey, the bat. So they restarted the match, and Bandito got the win. I don't know why Bandito couldn't just pin Chris Jericho. Way too extra. Thumbs up finish as far as the right guy won. And it was a nice moment for Bandito. And I'm very happy for him. And, I saw a few people celebrating online, like, finally, Latino world champion again. So, yeah, technically the ROH title is a world title. So I am very happy for Bandito. I think he's really marketable. And I think he's a super talent. He's obviously had some bad luck in recent years. But I hope this is the start of something good for him. As for Chris Jericho, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the deal is with him. Maybe if he really wants to go to WWE, like he's talking about, oh, yeah, I could see myself finishing up with WWE. Okay, send him into WWE. Go for it. Do a loser leaves town match. He owes you that at least. And send him on his merry way, because I do not need to see him again. Although, I'll see him yeah, then I'd see him on WWE TV. Oh well. Adam Cole beat Daniel Garcia in a match that had no time limit and no outside interference to win the TNT Championship. Really good match. Daniel Garcia, awesome champion. I'm really happy for Adam Cole, though, between all the comments about his physique, between the bad luck with his ankle exploding, and I think he suffered a concussion, right, a couple years ago. He's had his injuries and his setbacks, and then obviously the god awful creative with the devil and this and that with MJF. Like, he's finally past all that. I know he also, he revealed he dealt with a real life breakup, and so I'm sure I know he said that everything's amicable, but I'm sure that weighs on him too. So wishing him the best. I'm very happy for him. Finally starting to gain that momentum again that he had when he first arrived in AEW. And yeah, look, he was not going to be in a world title picture. Let him cook with the TNT title. Totally fine with this. He's done really well. So happy for him there. He shook hands with Daniel Garcia after a match. And yeah, look, if you had nothing else for Adam Cole to do, let him have great matches and defend the title. Why not? It's good. Keep him relevant. We had Kenny Omega beat Ricochet and Speedball Mike Bailey in an awesome, awesome match. This was a fantastic match. Went a little long for my liking, not because I didn't want it to go long. Like, I thought like they held the crowd in the palm of their hand, even though it was late. It's just that it was very late in the show. I think it might have been better if, like, say, opened the show. But this was a great match. Kenny Omega did the Super One-Wing Angel on Ricochet, pinned him 1, 2, 3. Speedball Mike Bailey was hung up in a tree of woe, so he could not break up the pin. But awesome match. Speedball definitely held his own here. This is a test for a lot of wrestlers on this card, right? Julia Hart stepped up for sure. Kevin Knight stepped up. Megan Bayne. Kyle Fletcher further proved himself, as one of the rising young stars. Bandito did his best with what's left of Chris Jericho. Adam Cole and Daniel Garcia justified their spot on the card for sure. And Speedball Mike Bailey did really well here. I gotta say, I haven't seen a turnaround in terms of character development like Ricochet in years. This guy, my goodness, I'm not gonna go as far as to say like this is like a JBL career turnaround when Bradshaw became John Bradshaw Layfield, but this is a hell of a turnaround. Like, this guy went from having very little charisma. I'm sure he's like a fun guy like outside the ring and everything. This is a guy that on screen was just super corny, a dork, booked like a dork, kind of made some weird tweets here and there. Just a guy that was kind of cringe. And at first it seemed like he was just going to be like a Henry Cejudo type of guy who's just very cringe. You know what I mean? Just very cringe. And maybe he'd get over a little bit, but I don't know. At the beginning, it just I wasn't feeling it. But this guy has done a complete 180 on the mic. I don't know if he's going to acting classes. I don't know if he just doesn't give an F anymore, and it just makes it easier for him to cut promos and finally let loose. And Let his promo ability match his incredible in-ring ability, but he has been unbelievable as a character. So props to Ricochet. I know it's not in the cards for him right now to hold the title or to, be one of the top guys, but he has absolutely cemented himself as a major player in this company. Man, and it's funny because years ago in WWE 2K19, I did turn him heel and he got over. So I'm just saying, maybe Tony Khan saw my universe mode online and took the idea. It's all good. Great minds think alike. After the match, Kazuchika Okada, the Continental Champion. Remember? He's the Continental Champion. Yeah, I forgot too. Okada came out, confronted Kenny Omega. Kenny walked away from him. And it looks like they're going to do Okada versus Omega at All in Texas. Please, Lord, for a few reasons. One, there are too many damn belts. Merge those belts. Two, it is a dream match for a lot of people who loved their series of matches in New Japan Pro Wrestling, which are some of the most iconic matches of all time. Three, I love Okada. He's one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. I really do believe that he is like, when he's on at his best, he's like this version's like Ric Flair. He really is. He's amazing. Or he was. He's at the point now where he just kind of is on like that Nakamura run where, if he wants to have a great match, he'll have a great match. Otherwise, he'll just do his thing. He'll fall into the elbow drop rather than actually jump. And look, if you're getting paid a lot of money and your boss doesn't care and you're trying to preserve your miles, I can't totally blame him, but it's not fun for a viewer and it's not fun for a longtime fan that watched his incredible run in New Japan. So I think he will certainly get up for a stadium show with his greatest rival, other than Hiroshi Tanahashi. So I'm excited to see that match. I don't know how much it'll fully resonate with some of the AEW audience because it's been a few years now since we've seen Okada versus Omega. It's been a while now since we've seen Okada have like a really, really, really like classic match. I guess maybe like Bryan Danielson, right? Like those matches were classics in AEW. But it's been a little while. I don't know if that's gonna resonate and move tickets. I would like to think so. I would like to think that those fans that maybe don't watch New Japan now, but watched it when it was on Access TV and pay-per-view. I would like to think those fans that were there at the beginning of AEW when it was really hot in 2019 to 2021, they say, oh my God, wait, Omega Okada? This might be the last time, and it could be. Look, both guys are getting older. In the case of Kenny, you don't know how many great matches he has left in him. I think he'll be all right. I'd like to think he'll be all right, but diverticulitis is no joke. He is like 40 now, right? 40 something. So I would love to see that match. I think it'll move some tickets. Be curious to see how many tickets it actually moves. But yeah, that is the way to go. But shout out to Ricochet, man. Done a great job. And Speedball held his own. And then, as I mentioned in the lame event, Jon Moxley pinned Swerve Strickland. I genuinely have no idea where they're going with this main event scene, with this whole deal. Is it going to be like a triple threat with Hangman and Swerve? Is MJF going to eventually get back into contention? I know people say Darby Allin, but Darby Allin's literally about to climb Mount Everest. And I know this not just because he's talked about it publicly, but because I actually interviewed a guy, a filmmaker named Alex Hars, who climbed Mount Everest. And I told him about Darby Allin. And then I texted DDP because he's a longtime friend of mine. And DDP is friends with Darby Allin. And I said, hey, you might want to connect Darby with this guy who's actually successfully climbed Mount Everest. They might have some like advice for him. And Alex gets back to me and he's like, yeah, I talked to Darby for like, an hour and a half. He was great. Give him a lot of advice. So I think Darby Allin will be well prepared to climb Mount Everest. But I think, knock on wood, he lives to tell about it and everything like that. It's still going to be a while before we see him. And I'm sorry, by the time he is fully recovered from Mount Everest, or at least attempting to climb Mount Everest and all that stuff, that Jon Moxley title reign is going to be like a year old. And I do not want that. Nobody wants that. Okay. Nobody wants that. Please do something. I don't know what, but they got to do something. And honestly, I know All In's in the summer, but I can't wait anymore. Do something. Do something. Whether that is Will Ospreay winning, whether that's Swerve getting an immediate rematch, whether it's Hangman winning and then doing Hangman versus Swerve at All In. I don't know. Whether it's giving, I don't know, Bryan Danielson a stack of money to say, listen, man, I know you're sort of retired. You want to be home with the wifey and kids, but please, Lord, save our main event scene. If you want to do that, do that. Cool. Cool. Or Adam, I don't care. Just somebody, anybody, maybe not anybody, but most guys, please just beat Jon Moxley. He shouldn't have beaten Hobbs. He shouldn't have beaten Swerve. He shouldn't have beaten Danielson. There's been a terrible title run. I feel like he's also sucked the charisma and life out of Pac and Claudio. And I mean, Yuta's whatever. Yuta is a good worker. He got good heat in his hometown, but like he's not a top guy. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with saying that. But man, that was a terrible ending to what was overall a pretty good show. Just a shame, man. Really, it really is just a shame. But such is life. Anyway, that was AEW Dynasty. I want to hear from all of y'all though. What did you think about the show?